Before I start talking about the Jewish Manifesto or the Jewish Manifesto project, I wanted to briefly give a bit more intro on Oive and what Oive is, who we are, and how we came to be. Oive was founded before the COVID pandemic, right before the COVID pandemic, by Livnat Faber and Timur Faber, a brother and sister, who started from the premise that something was missing in Jewish life in the Netherlands. Um, Jewish life was mostly behind closed doors, behind high walls, behind a lot of security. And we thought, yeah, or Timur and Lifnat, and I was also involved from the beginning, actually. We thought we need to change that. We need to create a space where Jewish life is accessible, where there is a low threshold to participate, and where yeah, people feel welcome and included, instead of yeah, that it's somehow sort of an exclusive and hard to access community. And we don't say this to say, let's open everything, Jewish holidays, our Jewish events to everyone necessarily. Though we do believe that a low threshold, and to also to share our culture with people that are not Jewish is important, but mostly also to those Jewish people that feel like the Jewish community is inaccessible to them. And the Jewish Manifesto project actually ties into that very nicely, I think. So that's what I'll be talking about today. The Jewish Manifesto is a project that we started when we were in a coalition, an anti-racism coalition, with other minority groups, let's say in the city of Amsterdam. And we got money to do a project. And we thought, okay, what can we do with this? And again, we started to think like, okay, what is missing? When people talk about Jews, what do they talk about? And can we change the discourse? So we started from the premise again that Jewish life in the Netherlands, and I'm sure it's pretty similar in other places in Europe, is not very visible. It's this, yeah, this hard to access, almost a secret society. And this, of course, is informed also by trauma, by security, by fear in the community. So that's one thing. But on the other hand, Jewish identity has become very politicized, and it has become almost controversial to talk about Jews, or to be Jewish. In the run up to the project, I spoke to some people, some friends, some non-Jewish friends in my environment, and I asked them the question: if I tell you, if I say the word Jew, even, how does that make you feel? And multiple people expressed to me that they said it makes me uncomfortable. So what we noticed was that Jewish identity is often being reduced to 3, maybe 4 very complex and abstract and controversial pillars or subjects. So there is the Holocaust, there is Palestine, Israel, there is in the Netherlands, very specifically, football hooligans, which I won't go into, but you can give it a Google. And what we wanted to do was to give a voice to the lived experience of Jews in the Netherlands. So to have Jews talk about who they are, where they come from, what their history is, but also what they want from life. What are their dreams, their aspirations, their fears, their hopes, instead of always being reduced to this kind of political abstractions and complexities, but to actually have people, have Jews not being talked about, but have them talk about themselves and share that with the rest of the world, basically. One of the first things that we did was we created this video, and I'm going to try to show it. What I noticed when we were practicing, my internet is a bit unstable, it seems. So let's see. Maybe I'm just going to press play, and maybe a thumbs up or a thumbs down from people if it's really hard to follow.
I remember I wanted to get it corrected as soon as I turned 18.
Het symboliseert voor mij mijn queerness en punk Jewness.
I was told that I didn't look Jewish enough.
Een goed gevoel heb voor humor en heel zelfverzekerd ben.
My name is Levi and I am 8. My name is Charlie and I am 8.
Some people say a living wonder. While I live, you all wonder.
Ja, het object dat ik heb meegenomen is een rasp. Ja, eten is voor mij een hele heldere, duidelijke en fijne manier om in verbinding te zijn met mijn Joodse identiteit.
Ik was denk ik een jaar of 3 of 4. We hebben nog oude tekeningen bij mijn ouders thuis liggen dat ik Davidsterren heb getekend.
Mijn achtergrond is gemengd, het is Frans en Asia-Pacific. De eerste keer dat ik me echt bewust was van de Joodse gemeenschap en van mijn Joods zijn is geweest dat ik toen ik op mijn 6e jaar op een begrafenis lawaai was van een dierbaar.
That's like asking a fish when did he first realize that he lived in water. Born and raised in Brooklyn, everybody was Jewish whom I grew up with.
She invited me to go to synagogue, and it was cool, and it felt reconnecting with something that I didn't really know was there, but it was there.
At the age of 7, I saw for the first time an uncircumcised penis.
Een goede vraag eigenlijk, weet ik eigenlijk niet.
What would I say is very Jewish about me is probably my desire to feed people.
So what's really Jewish about me, I would say it's my nose. It is sort of like the undervalued asset. Nowadays, it's probably the sweetest part of being a Jew. It's this sweet ride right here.
In one word, what's most Jewish about me is rachmanos, which means compassion. And I think this is the most important thing we Jews offer the world.
Ik zat gisteren nog in de trein met een collega en die zei... Oh, ik wist helemaal niet dat er nog Joden waren in Nederland. Ik dacht dat die allemaal weg waren na de Tweede Wereldoorlog.
Still don't like the idea of putting my Magen David in my shirt when I'm out on the street.
Jood zijn in Nederland vind ik op sommige momenten best wel eng en ook wel gevaarlijk.
Het hangt er vanaf eigenlijk, maar het kan leuk zijn. Het kan ook dreigend zijn voor mezelf, in mijn ervaring.
I have never encountered so much antisemitism in any place I lived as here. The way people just express their anti-Semitic opinions has shocked me.
Do you feel Jewish?
Yeah.
And what does it feel like?
It feels fun and it feels trash.
Het object dat ik heb meegenomen is eigenlijk die van is mijn ring, eigenlijk, die van mijn oma. Dat is het laatste wat ik nog van haar heb. Het doet me gewoon denken aan, laat ik zeggen, de Surinaamse kant en het Joods, waar het ook vandaan komt.
Als ik aan Jodendom denk, denk ik meteen aan eten. En er is altijd eten over en ik moet altijd eten mee naar huis nemen. En dat gaat dan in aluminiumfolie.
This is a kiddush cup that was my grandmother's. My grandparents escaped the pogroms. This is one of the few things I have from my grandparents.
This is a very small thing, but it really reminds me much more of kind of the actual human history of Jewishness.
Overal waar ik kom heb ik een mezuzah, hangen in een huis of mijn werk, op het stadhuis. Maar wel altijd één die niet conventioneel is.
A Sephardic amulet. It was given to me by my dad, and he told me, you can have this when you become grown and you can handle the responsibility of something so powerful.
When we look at objects, they usually tend to hold larger stories, and I think that especially the little things are what makes being Jewish so different for every single person.
Thanks everyone for watching. I hope it was okay. I got a message in the chat saying that at least the audio was good. Some of it was in Dutch, so maybe you couldn't follow everything. But I think what this video makes very clear is there is a couple of things that we wanted to do with this project. First of all, is also just to talk about the little things, the personal things, the things that people hold dear to their heart, and that sometimes are very personal, instead of being like these Jews, like I said before, being reduced to like they can only talk about the Holocaust, or they're only allowed to speak about Israel. But also to show that the Jewish community in the Netherlands is extremely diverse, and that there's a lot of people from different backgrounds, different gender expressions, different nationalities, ethnicities, and they're all Jewish. So also to kind of break through maybe the stereotypical images that people hold in their head of who Jews are and what Jews look like, and also what a Jew should be allowed to speak about, basically. The core of the project was that we organized group discussions. So we would invite through our social media channels, but also through other means, we would invite Jews in the Netherlands, Dutch Jews, but also Jews from other places that live in the Netherlands, to come speak to us about their experiences. So we did every month for a period of almost 1.5 years. We organized 2 of these group discussions. And that basically the idea was to, by talking to people, get the input needed for our manifesto. And with the manifesto, we basically wanted to answer these 3 questions. So what do Jews, Dutch Jews, and Jews in the Netherlands need to feel safe and free in Dutch society? How do we effectively combat anti-Semitism? And what is needed to give Jewish culture and Jewish life a place in Dutch society? And the way that we went about this was, like I said, we organized moderated discussions, usually around a question, and we used the method of, or around a topic, sorry, and we used the method of Chevrutah. So we thought it also important for us to kind of draw back on our own tradition, our own methods. So I don't know if everybody is familiar with the concept of Chevrutah, but basically it is you study a source. So usually we brought to the discussion, we brought like an artwork or an essay or a video or something that would spark discussion and that would kind of kick off the discussion. And then people would go in groups of 2 to discuss what they had seen, what they had heard, what they had read, and also give some questions with them to guide their discussion a bit, and then come back to the bigger group and share. And all of those conversations in the bigger group were recorded and written down so that we could actually use them as input for the manifesto, and so that the manifesto that we are currently in the process of writing and releasing could basically give voice to all of the voices. So we talked to around 300 people that we spoke to. And this is a list of some of the topics that we discussed. So an interesting one for me, for instance, was the topic of reparations. So how in Dutch society or Dutch politics basically kind of relate to this idea that reparations for the Holocaust, for instance, is is some kind of a paycheck, so that you can just you throw some money at the community and then, you know, they will be fine. And in our conversations, the topic reparations was brought up repeatedly by people, and saying that no, we need a different approach to how we rebuild a community that basically suffered a genocide, and that sometimes simply giving them money, we can maybe talk about this later a bit more in depth, is making things worse rather than things better. So this is one of the quite complex topics that is going to be raised in the manifesto, because it was brought up by a lot of people that also had very damaging and difficult experiences with reparations within their own families and things like that. But we also talked about the future of Judaism in the Netherlands. We talked about imposter syndrome, because we also noticed that a lot of the people that came to us were people that felt like, yes, I'm Jewish, I'm born Jewish, but I don't know anything about it. Can I even claim this identity? So I want to take you quickly through some of our main learnings from this project. So what did we learn? Well, first, a topic that was brought up quite a lot is this question, and I'm sure some of you recognize this in their own work, is who gets to be Jewish? Many people that came to us expressed, like I said earlier, this kind of feeling that, they somehow have a stake, they somehow have a claim to this Jewish identity because of their family, because they were born Jewish. But many people in the community, we found, feel like they're kind of cut off from this community, and they feel like they're not Jewish enough. I'm not good at being Jewish. I don't know anything about it. I cannot read Hebrew. I don't know a lot about the religion. I don't really know any other Jews. So yes, I'm Jewish, but I don't really know what to do with it. That was something that a lot of people expressed to us, and this is actually a quote from one of the people that came to one of the conversations, which also puts quite clearly that this person realizes, yes, it's a part of me, but it's also a big part of it is how the Jewish, let's say the institutionalized Jewish community responds to these people. And we know for a fact that the big majority of Jews in the Netherlands is not affiliated to a synagogue, is not affiliated to an organization. So one of the sort of, how do you say it, important questions that the manifesto raises is, how is it that so many people feel Jewish in a way, but also feel like they cannot access the community? Quite quickly, we realized also that these discussions that we organized draw actually mostly people that for the first time in their life felt like a Jewish event organized by a Jewish organization was for them, and that they were welcome. So one of the things we did this, I think, was we made this very simple sort of guideline that we shared on our website and social media and our newsletter, etc., to kind of give people an idea of, am I welcome? Because I don't know how it is in some of your national contexts, but for instance, if I go to synagogue here in the Netherlands, I am a member of a big Reform community. There is a lot of security, and that is in a way necessary, but also people, it puts a lot of people off because they get all these questions. Do you know someone inside the building? Who are your parents? What are their names? Can you recite the Shema? So very specific questions that a lot of people feel like every Jewish event or every Jewish space is going to be this inaccessible to them. So we kind of wanted to also broaden our definition a bit, so to also include patrilinear Jews and people that might otherwise not be included. And this very simple tool actually, we know, helped a lot of people to come to us. One of the other things, and this is more a bit broadly about Dutch society and the way Dutch society looks at itself, is this idea that as Jews, we always get confronted with this idea that the Dutch society as a whole sees itself as the hero in the story. So we during the Second World War, we saved you. We were all in the resistance, and this, whilst at the same time, and this is again a quote from someone that participated, the way that this same society has been and sometimes still is perceived by Jews is that they don't really care that much about what happened to us and would rather have that we stop talking about it. So there is this kind of this discrepancy between the way Dutch society sees itself and the way the Jewish community actually experiences this same society and sort of the mythology or the story that this society tells itself versus the way it actually treats the survivors of the genocide, let's say, the Shoah. And I mean, there's a lot more things that we learned and a lot more things that were discussed, but I think in a way it all boils down to the same thing, and that is this feeling of fragility, this feeling of the destruction that was wrought upon the Jewish society or Jewish community in the Netherlands. I don't know if people know this, but during the Shoah, almost 80% of Dutch Jewry was destroyed, and that is the biggest percentage of Western Europe. And that really plays a huge part in how people, relate to their Jewish identity. Because for so many people, the connection to their identity was severed. So people, again, feel like they don't really know much. Their parents or grandparents kept information from them. Jewish identity was a taboo. It wasn't something that you could talk about. So a lot of the people that came to us also expressed this, and also in need, like this quote perhaps also says, to kind of break with that and create a happy Jewish story. I vividly remember one of the conversations we had in which someone said, I find it very easy to talk about Jewish pain and trauma and all the difficult things, but very hard to talk about Jewish joy in a way. Another quote that kind of speaks to this. And also this one, this sense that people felt like, I want to like do something with my Jewish identity, but it feels like it's theater because it's not rooted in my day-to-day practice, in my family's traditions, because so much of that was destroyed and forgotten, basically. Yes, and then we of course come to the blue and white elephant in the room in some situations, Israel. It was actually, I think we wanted to do our conversations about Israel on October 9th of last year. So the first one was scheduled on October 9th. And we wanted to talk about this idea that Jewish identity is often conflated with Israel, and how people themselves also experience that, and talk about that. We postponed these discussions because, it was too soon to talk about this. Our community was in pain, but we did a couple months later organize these discussions, and also we did some kind of a sharing circle about the way, just how people felt in that moment. And that also was a very beautiful experience to me, because a lot of the people that came had extremely different views on Israel and on Palestine and on their relationship to Israel. But yeah, again, one of the sentiments that people do express is the first time I actually experienced something like Jewish joy was in Israel, because that was the first place that I went to that kind of where it felt normal. And then, of course, there were also people that expressed that they felt shame about, somehow being connected to this place, not really wanting to be connected to this place, but being connected to it in a way anyway. So when we try to talk about the relationship that participants had to Israel, they mostly actually talked also about their place in Dutch society and the way that Dutch people look at them. About their friends, about their colleagues, some people that maybe work in very complicated relationship with other communities, and how that made people feel, also about their position in Dutch society. Okay, so again, this is all very quickly, but I hope we can dive a little deeper with some questions. In the future, we are currently completing the writing of the manifesto. It will be both in Dutch and in English, and we're building a website to house it, which is basically the way we want it to be designed, is that you can kind of get lost in it, so you can dive into different topics, and there's going to be commentary attached to it. We're going to ask people to also reflect on what we've written, so that it becomes kind of this living document. We're launching it on November 21st in Amsterdam in a former synagogue with our Jewish Manifesto. The plan is also to create toolkits for other communities to set up a similar project, to share the manifesto with our Jewish institutions, because we think that a lot of the learnings are actually not necessarily for us, but also for the more institutionalized organizations and communities in the Netherlands. To share and discuss the manifesto with other non-Jewish communities and people, and a lot more. And if you want to find out more, you can find us at Zijlstra.nl. That is like a placeholder website, so it's not the cool website mentioned on the earlier slide. You can find us on oive.nl or on Instagram at Jewish Manifest. Okay. Then we can go to questions. But first, I want to do the last slide. If you want to make a donation, very welcome. You can scan the QR code. We are currently crowdfunding for the release of the manifesto, so we could use all the help we can get.